Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is Heather Fowle with Alfresco Software. And on behalf of Alfresco and Bluefish Development Group, we'd like to thank you for joining us for our webinar today, where we're going to highlight using Alfresco Share as a corporate intranet. I just want to make everybody aware that this call is being recorded, and the link will be available to you after this call. So we'll go ahead and get started here. I'd like to introduce Mike Trafton with Bluefish Development Group. Michael has been designing and implementing enterprise content management solutions for over 15 years. His clients include some of the most successful brands in their industries like Dell and Southwest Airlines. He's written a number of articles on the subject and presented dozens of times at industry conferences. He is here with us today, as I mentioned, to share some ideas about using Alfresco Share as a corporate intranet. I just want to let you guys know before I turn it over to him that there will be an opportunity at the end of the presentation for you to ask questions. If you see a chat bubble or a question mark, if you're using a PC or a Mac, sometimes it looks a little different on your WebEx interface, but you should be able to type in questions and we can run through those at the end. So for now, I'll turn it over to Michael.
Thanks, Heather. I appreciate it. And thanks, everybody, for joining. Good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you are. Before we get into the meat of the presentation, I want to just take a second to introduce the company I work for, Bluefish. At Bluefish, we are a systems integration and consulting firm, and we help companies implement Alfresco and solve their enterprise content management challenges. And you can see some of the clients that we've worked with over here on the right. These are some of the more well-known companies we've worked with, but we've also worked with tons of smaller companies that you've probably never heard of. So we work with companies of all sizes, and our real specialty is in doing fixed-price projects, whether it's a turnkey solution where we kind of own the whole project from soup to nuts, or whether it's a smaller project where we take a piece of the project and we work in conjunction with our clients so they can kind of learn and get some experience at the same time. And I'm not going to give you a big sales pitch. I want to get kind of straight into the meat of the presentation. But at the end of the presentation, I'm going to take a couple of minutes to tell you a little bit more about Bluefish. But I'll tell you what, I'll give you lots of warning, and that way if you're not interested, you can just tune me out, or you won't hurt my feelings if you exit the call. But if you are, after you hear what I talk about today, if you're interested in maybe learning how Bluefish could help your company, then I'll stick around and you can ask some questions and I can answer. Okay, with that said, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. So the agenda I've got prepared is I want to talk a little bit about why intranet projects are hard. And I'm going to give you some pointers for what to look out for, and also some ideas for making your intranet projects run a little smoother. And one of those ideas is a solution that we've used in the past of using Alfresco Share to create a network of intranet sites. And I'm actually going to show you how we do that here at Bluefish on our intranet that we call FishNet. And like Heather said, we'll have time at the end for questions. So to start, I kind of want to ask a poll here, and if you look on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you should have a little poll. And I'm just to make sure I talk at the right level, I'd be interested in understanding what you're working on, if you're working on an intranet project right now, what status of the project you're in. I will let this run for a couple of minutes while folks are answering the poll questions. So far it seems like most folks are actually in the process of a intranet project or planning to start one in the next 6 months. Let's see, I'll wait for a couple more people to finish up. And I'm about to close the poll. And all right, I'm closing the poll. So yeah, it looks about, I'll share these results here in a second, and it looks like most folks are definitely, in fact, nobody is not planning an internet project. So that's good. At least I understand the context of where you guys are coming from. Here's the poll results for those who are interested in. The next, I want to ask one more question as well, which is I'm kind of interested to know how challenging the folks that are attending think a internet project is. So some folks may think it's a piece of cake. Some folks may think it's a no big deal. Some may find it challenging. So I'd be interested to hear what you think on that. So folks are answering now. Oh, early results say most people think that internet projects are challenging at least. And I'll go ahead and close the poll here. And give a couple seconds for folks to submit their final responses. Okay. And you can sort of see the results here. I'll share the results with you as well. Give a second for WebEx to update. And here you can sort of see that good, about half the people thought that the internet projects were challenging or very challenging. And you know what? I feel the same way. I've worked on probably a dozen or more internet projects, and at first glance they can seem like they shouldn't be that hard because they're internal projects. They're not customer facing. It's not revenue producing. But for some reason, internet projects can be some of the most challenging IT projects that we run into. And you know, I think that there are 3 reasons why internet projects are so hard, and that's what I'm going to talk about first. And the first reason that an internet project is hard is that we ask our intranets to serve multiple masters. So we ask them to do lots of different things. And individual employees that are using the intranet, they want to use the intranet to find and discover information that helps them do their jobs. And they want to use your intranet at work the way they use Google at home. So that's the first constituency. The management team, they want to use the intranet to inform the employees of information that they think is important. So they almost want to use the intranet like a memo or like a newsletter or something like that. They want to push information. And then increasingly, teams inside companies are asking the intranet to be able to collaborate on projects. Maybe they want to coordinate schedules or milestones or disseminate status information. Or they also may want to collaborate actually on deliverables themselves, maybe forwarding the documents around for review, or I'm going to write a paragraph, and you're going to write a paragraph. We're going to work on a document together. And so these 3 things are completely different uses of an intranet. And it's really hard for a single site to be able to accomplish all 3 of these. And what makes it worse is there are some complicating factors as well. So the big one here is you have to figure out in your intranet which use cases are you even going to address on the intranet. So, of course, you're probably going to address the consumer use case of people finding information that they need to do their jobs. But don't discount the second half of this use case, which is the discover use case, where people are uncovering information they didn't even know existed. They'd like to know it if they knew it was there, but they probably don't even know it's there. And this discover use case is one of the reasons that internal search engines don't make a great intranet platform on their own, because with the search engine you kind of have to know what you're looking for before you go looking. And what's hard about this consumer use case is figuring out a way to organize all the information in a way that makes sense to the most people. Because there tends to be a lot of diverse information on your intranet, And that's one of the challenges we're going to talk about. The second major use case you probably want to deal with is this publish or informing use case. And this is the one we were talking about a second ago, where management wants to inform the employees of information. But it also can happen on a smaller scale, where within a project team, for example, maybe the project manager wants to share a status report with multiple people. That's also part of this informing use case. And what's hard about this is avoiding what I call internal spam. So sometimes we like to notify each other of what we're doing. Hey, I'm going to be on vacation next week, or I updated this document. And we can send a ton of emails, and we can fill people's inboxes up with a bunch of notifications that they're not really interested in. And if you're not careful, people will start to tune out those notifications, or worse, they'll write an Outlook rule to dump them all into a folder and get to them later, and then they never get to them. So if you're not careful, you can actually spam your fellow employees. The third use case that's gaining popularity on intranets is the idea of collaborating to create content, routing documents around for review and approval, and jointly working on deliverables. And typically this is done at the team level. And what's hard about this is actually keeping irrelevant information hidden from everybody else. So the more a team uses the intranet to organize their own team documents, the more likely that it is that those documents are going to show up in the search results for somebody else and clutter up those and make it harder to find information that someone else is looking for. And so the example I like to use here is, imagine if I'm going to come into work in the office over a weekend, and I want to make sure that there's not going to be a planned network outage or something while I don't want to waste my trip into the office. So I go on the intranet, I do a search for network outage. If I get back in my search results 5 months of status reports from the network monitoring team, that's not that helpful to me. That's not really what I was looking for. I was kind of looking for a notice page. So you can see that by the network monitoring team using the intranet to store its status reports and collaborate on its content, it can actually clutter up the search results for the vast majority of the other employees using the intranet. So you've got to watch out for that. And then finally, the fourth major use case that you may want to consider is the archive use case. When documents or content is obsolete, it's no longer relevant, then you may want to archive it, maybe to retain it for legal purposes as according to your records management policies, but also just to decommission the content or the documents so that they don't clutter up the user interface, the search results. And one of the worst things that can happen on an intranet is when people find information that they know is out of date, they start to not trust the rest of the information on the intranet, and they don't know whether or not it's up to date or it's the latest, and so they start to call people or email or store their own copies of the files, and it kind of defeats the purpose. So what's hard about archiving is figuring out what information you're going to archive and when to archive it, because we don't have a lot of time to go through and sift through existing information and figure out what's no longer relevant. We need some way to make this easier. Now, the second major reason that intranet projects are hard is that the success of an intranet is really subjective. It's kind of in the eye of the beholder. And when we start an intranet project, we'll ask our clients, what are the goals that you have? What are the outcomes? Why are you interested in even doing a project like this? And we see these types of results. Our clients will tell us, well, we want to create a one-stop shop for important information, or a central repository for the key information in the company, or we need to improve access to the timely, relevant information. And the problem is that all these words I'm highlighting here, these are the description of the information people want to manage on the intranet. But the problem is that the interpretation of these, of what's important or what's accurate or what's useful, what's relevant, that really varies based on who's consuming the information. So what may be relevant to you may be irrelevant to me. So it's hard to know when your intranet is successful. And give you an example of this, here's a screenshot from the Bluefish intranet from before we moved to Alfresco Share. And this is just a wiki that we had hosted on a Google site. And you can see at the top of this wiki that we have a collection of client projects. These are links to pages on the intranet that talk about the projects that we were working on for these clients at the time that I took this screenshot. Now let me scroll down to the very bottom of this page, and you'll see way down at the bottom is a link to our company directory, which has the phone numbers and the email addresses and the IMs and all of that sort of thing. And what I'm illustrating here is that this link, company directory, is relevant to every single person in our company, but it's at the bottom of the page. And that's because over time, other people have put what's relevant to them at the top of the page. So all the client projects are really only relevant to the people working on those projects in the delivery team. Yet they take up the real estate at the top of the page. So this sort of illustrates that what's relevant to you may not be relevant to me. I've got to scroll all the way to the bottom of the page to find this company directory. This is one of the other reasons that intranets or projects can be difficult. And then the third reason is that everybody in the company uses your intranet, so everybody in the company has an opinion about how it should look, how it should look like, what it should contain, how that information should be organized. And often those experiences, those opinions, are informed really by personal preference. So when someone gives you their idea of how the information should be organized, what they're probably saying is, well, this is how I would personally prefer it to be organized. And they're not likely to be trained information architects or librarians who are trained at organizing information for other people. So that can make a project really hard. And it's made worse by the fact that the management team gets a bigger vote than anybody else because they're the boss. And so oftentimes their desire to push information down to the employees can be weighted more heavily than the need for employees to find information that helps them do their job. And so a lesson that we've learned over the years is that if management's desire to do this top-down communication is given too much weight, then employees won't even use the site regularly. And I've seen intranets where the whole front homepage of the intranet has got announcements and the information that the management team is pushing to the employees. And so the employees just bookmark their department's page or their team's page, and they never even look at the home page because it doesn't have anything that they perceive to be valuable to them. So our recommendation is, with your intranet, you should first focus on the needs of the employees and try to make the intranet a tool that they will use every day. And then leave space for the management to post their messages, for example, as an announcement feed on the user dashboard or something like that. And if you use advertising as your inspiration for this, it works really well. If you think about a newspaper who has all this great content, and that brings in the eyeballs, and then advertisers sort of tack on their messages over to the side, you can do a similar thing with your news and your announcements from the management team on your intranet. So in summary, the problem that I think we're trying to solve here is that a single intranet site is very difficult for that one site to do all these things, to organize all this diverse information in a way that's well-suited for each person, to support all those different use cases of collaborate and archive and inform, to make a place where all the employees want to visit frequently, which means they probably have their day-to-day documents on the intranet, but how do you keep those documents out of everyone else's search results? And how do you let management push the messages to the employees without that feeling like spam? And doing all of that while accommodating these diverse opinions across the company. So our solution that we've used for this is to actually use Alfresco Share to create a network of intranet sites, not just a single site, but a network of sites. And Alfresco Share was actually really well suited for this because Alfresco Share supports multiple sites out of the box. It's got diverse memberships, so you can have different members of one site from a different site with different permissions and different roles in each site. And these sites are user configurable, so you don't need an IT team setting up all these sites. Your user community can actually set the site up and configure it to look the way they need it to look. And Alfresco Share has all these other collaboration features and information sharing features like the document library and wikis and blogs and search that allow you to manage pretty much any kind of information that you need to. And all the different components of an intranet, the announcements, the documents, your employee directory, events, all these things, they map very well over to the various components in Alfresco Share, the blogs and the wikis and the feeds and those sorts of things. So we found Share kind of out of the box almost is a really good intranet solution. And let me show you how we've used it and what I'm talking about. So when I say network of share sites, what I mean is that you might start with a single site in Alfresco Share for your employees. And this site might contain the benefits information, the vacation schedule, the expense report policy, the information that applies to all the employees across the company. And it's also a really good place for management to put the news items and the annual report and whatever other information or messages that they want to reinforce to the employees. This site is a great place for that. And then you can have separate sites for your various departments. So each of these department sites is probably restricted to members of that department only, and it's organized the way that makes sense to that department. You also probably want to have separate sites for your internal projects. You know, these department sites are going to live forever because your departments live forever, but the internal projects are only going to live while that project is ongoing. So, for example, maybe your facilities department has decided that your office needs to move from one building to another because you've outgrown your office space. They may start up a project to, look for new office space, to coordinate movers and things like that, and they may want a share site to organize those documents and those discussions about how much should we pay for rent and all that sort of thing. And when that project is over, you can archive that site, get it out of sight, out of mind, but yet 5 years from now, if you need to do another office move, you can resurrect that site and figure out what mover did we use and were there some document templates we want to reuse, that sort of thing. And similarly, the marketing department can have sites for their marketing projects, and the IT department can have sites for their projects. Similarly, at Bluefish, we do client projects. This is our business is doing Alfresco projects for our clients. So we have a collection of sites for our client projects as well. And the only real difference between the internal projects and the client projects is that our client projects, we strive for more consistency between the sites so that as a delivery team member moves from one project to another project, the information is organized in a similar manner. Whereas on the internal projects, the office move is going to have completely different information than the web site redesign project. It's going to be organized differently, and that's fine. And then finally, there's another collection of sites that we call process sites. And these sites tend to be long-lived, and they're cross-team. And a great example of this is a recruiting site. So at Bluefish, we have a site. We use it for managing our recruiting process. And the interview questions, the job descriptions, those types of things are all organized in that site. And when the marketing team is hiring a new marketing intern, they use the recruiting site to manage the resumes and the scheduling of the interviews. And when the engineering team needs to hire a new developer, they use it. So different people in different departments are joining the recruiting site and leaving the recruiting site as their needs dictate. And it's a bit of a mix of process-related documents, and collaboration documents. Now, so if we look at all of this, you see, well, there's a lot of sites here, and that's true, but not every site is going to be accessed by every employee. And another thing is that Share has a user dashboard that allows you to roll up information from the various sites you belong to into a central location. So in this case, let's say we have a user that is a member of a variety of these sites. Let me get rid of the ones they're not a member of, and now you can kind of see this is a very manageable universe for this user. They're clearly a member of the product development department. They're working on a couple of client projects. They're probably helping the IT guys with that network upgrade. And they've got a couple of sites for reference, like maybe they're working to hire helping to interview new employees, or they're tracking changes to the delivery methodology. So here you can see this one person's network is unique to them, and the user dashboard collates all this information together. And what we found is that there's 3 types of sites in our network of sites. The first is a team collaboration site, and these are the sites like the project sites and the team sites like finance, and they're typically not shared outside of your team. And the key piece of information here is that they're self-organized, so each team can organize the information in the site how that team sees fit. And this is very important for that problem I described, that everyone has an opinion of how information should be organized. This gives them the ability to organize it the way they see fit in their little sphere of influence. So you don't need a central czar of your intranet organizing information for these teams. Also, when the project is complete or the team is disbanded for some reason, this entire site can be archived, which makes it easy to decommission a large collection of information at once, gets it out of the search results for everybody else, and keeps the clutter of your intranet to a minimum. The second kind of site is what we call a curated site. And these sites are governed, they're designed with consumers in mind, and you want to organize them the way your consumers expect it, not the way your authors think about the information. So the example I like to use here is, imagine the expense report policy. It's typically owned by finance, and most intranets will have your expense report template and the policy on the finance page. But most employees think about expense reports as being related to travel. I go on a trip, I come back from the trip, I need to fill out an expense report. So you probably want the expense report template to be on the travel page, not on the finance page. That's an example of what I'm talking about here. Also, and these curated sites are typically read-only for most members. You're only going to have a couple of people updating the content, and typically that content is actually created in some other team site. So the expense report policy is probably created and revised and updated over in the finance team site, and then it needs to be published over to the employee site whenever that revision is finalized. And then the third type of site is a hybrid site, and sometimes you just have a mix of both kinds of sites. That recruiting site is a good example of this, where the recruiting processes that we use are curated, but the resume tracking and the scheduling of the interviews, all of that behaves more like a collaboration site. So in summary, I guess I'm saying that we ask ourselves, could Share do all of these things? Could a network of Share sites solve all the problems we talked about earlier? Could it organize diverse information in a way that's best for your individuals? Absolutely, because you can have different teams for different needs, and they can be organized differently. Can it support all these different use cases? Archive, yes. Collaborate, yes. All of the use cases. Could it be a place that your employees visit frequently? Yes, because it can have a team site that they do their work in all day, every day. Can it keep the irrelevant information out of your search results? Absolutely, because first of all, the search defaults only to your current site that you're in, which is nice. And second, if I'm not a member of a site and I don't have permission to those documents, even if I search across all sites, I'm not going to see those documents in my search results. And that's a big difference between a normal intranet and a system like Share. Can it let management push messages without them feeling like spam? Yes, you can do that with announcements feeds and things like that. Can it decommission obsolete information? Yes, just archive your site, the whole collection gets decommissioned. And can it accommodate all those diverse opinions? Yes, it can, because each group or faction or stakeholder group can have its own site. So Shared just solves this problem in a great way. So with that, let me show you how we use Share at Bluefish for our intranet that we call FishNet. I'm going to share my desktop here. And what you should be seeing is Alfresco Share, and I am on our site that we call our employee site, and I am on our document library tab. So the employee site is, as I described before, it's the place where it contains information relevant to all the different employees. And so you can see the kind of information here. There's benefits information, and we've got some logos and case studies. And I'll drill down here into company goals and performance. One thing we do at Bluefish is we have a meeting every month where we share our progress towards our corporate goals. So just to show you what that looks like, here's a collection of these meetings. We call them all-hands meetings. You can see the presentations that are uploaded into are published into this employee site every time we have one of these meetings. Another tab here in Alfresco Share that we use on the employee site is the blog, and we use the blog for announcements. So here you can see a couple of announcements. There's a fire drill happening. We have open enrollment for our benefits coming up. And so this is kind of cuts down on some of those notification emails that we talked about. And our employees can just subscribe to an RSS feed and be in good shape. Another thing we use a lot is the wiki. So here you can see there's lots of wiki pages. I'll scroll down. You can see how many. We have a zillion of these wiki pages. And we find wiki pages to be super helpful in just capturing short little bursts of information, like how to use the printer, or what's the instructions for the voicemail for a new employee, things like that. And then finally, there's the dashboard. And this dashboard is really what people see the first time they enter the employee site. And you'll see that here in the middle, we've got those announcements. We've actually got the announcement feed rolling, so or the blog feed rolling as announcements. You can see the kind of activity that's gone on the site, so you can discover new information that has been uploaded to the site, new documents, and you can see what other people have done, if they've commented on a document or something like that. All of that will show up in the site activities. Around the perimeter of these central sort of column here, you'll see that we have little snippets of information. So these are important links and the phone number to call if you have an IT issue. We've got benefits information at your fingertips. Over on the right, you can see some policies. The right-hand side is where we store some of the messages that management cares about. So here are the policies. Down at the bottom, you can see the core values of the company are being highlighted. You can see another RSS feed of articles we've published to our website. So this is a sort of typical type of information that you would see on an intranet. And pay attention to, notice how we've used these wiki dashlets to highlight certain information that we think is most important. And this is what I mean when I say curation. We're curating the content. There's a lot of content on this employee site, but the person who owns the site has pulled out some of the most important content into these dashlets on the dashboard here. And so let me, so since we use these a lot, it's kind of tedious, it turns out, to actually maintain these little dashlets. So let me show you what these dashlets are. So some of you may not be familiar with them. Each of these wiki dashlets is actually a view into a wiki page. So I'm going to click on this one, Company Goals and Performance, and I'll get taken straight to the wiki page called Company Goals and Performance, where this page can be edited and new links can be added, can be updated, and they'll show up on the dashboard. So imagine in this case that I have been told by my employees that we'd like to see some of the old all-hands meetings slides listed here as well. So if I want to do that, I'll maybe add past result. And typically what I would do is I would have to type in February 2010. I would select this text. I would go up to the link, and I would need to type in a link of where that document can be found. But now this is the tedious part because I don't have the link. I don't know what the link is. So now I have to cancel out of this dialog. I have to go find the link on maybe in another browser, copy the link, come back to this dialog, paste it in. It's quite tedious to maintain a whole collection of links. So what we've done is we've added a customization to the wiki called Insert Alfresco Link. And when I click this, I get a brand new dialog that we've created, and it lets me browse the entire network of share sites to find information that I want to link into one of these wiki pages. And I can find blog entries, I can find other wiki pages, anything in the repository I can find, and you can see I can actually look at all different sites. But in this case, I know that those all hands meetings minutes are in the Companies and Goals and Performance folder. I'll go into All Hands Meetings, 2010. And now I'm going to add these documents as links. So let me just do this in the right order. So I've got February, then there's March, April, May, and June. So I've added the links. I click OK, and bam, you can see all the links have been added. We pull the title off of the document to make the link text, and it's as easy as pie for me to save that, and now all the documents are linked. And if I were to go back to my dashboard, you'll scroll down, you'll see that all those links have been added. If I click on one of those links, I get taken to its document details page where I can download the document, or I can just read it here in the preview or do anything I want to. So that's the first customization that we've made to share to make this network of sites a little easier usability-wise. Let's move on to another site in the network. To change sites, I pull down this pick list, and you can see that I've got a bunch of sites that I've favorited. And this is pretty common to have 5 to 10 sites that somebody is a member of, but typically we only spend time in a handful per person. So I'm going to go into the marketing site. This is one of those team sites I was talking about, and it has a similar look and feel to the employee site. It's all using the similar dashlets and similar information. Well, let me pop into the document library and show you the kind of information that this marketing team manages. Now, the marketing team is very document-centric. They don't do a lot of blogs and things, but they do a lot of documents. And if I just drill into, say, the logos, and I'll go into this folder called Client Logos, and you can sort of see this is just a folder that contains a bunch of logos of clients we've worked with over the years. You can now scroll down so you can see what that looks like. And Share is really nice. It makes thumbnails out of these logos so you can quickly find the one you're looking for. But these logos are special because our clients don't want just anybody to be able to use a logo. They have rules about proper usage. So we keep them locked away here in the marketing site so that just any old Bluefisher doesn't get access to them. But sometimes a client will let us use their logo in marketing materials or something like that. And so in that case, we want to publish this logo to the employee site where everyone else can find it. And let me show you what that would look like. So imagine that Bausch & Lomb has given us permission to use their logo we want to publish it over to the employee site. We've added a new action here to share called Publish. And the publishing action brings up this dialog, which lets me select any site in my network and any folder in that site, and I can publish and copy the document into that site. So in this case, I'm going to go to the employee site and link it and publish this file to a client logos file or folder. I get a message that says it was successfully published, and now if I view the details of the logo, you will see as I scroll down that the published, that there's a new area here on the screen telling me this document has been published to another site. And if I can mouse over, I can see exactly where the document has been published. And in fact, I can follow this link over to the employee site to the document. So if you look up here at the top, even though it kind of looks like the same document, you'll see now I'm in the employee site and I'm in a completely different folder from the marketing site. And not only is it a different folder, but I can have completely different metadata. And I think this naming convention works for the marketing department, but it doesn't work so much for our general employees. So I'm going to change the name of the document. I can put a description in, permission to use in 2010 so everybody knows, and I can save this document. So now you see the metadata is updated, but I can scroll down and I can see the source document that this document came from. So you can see that it came from a document in the marketing site with a different name, and I can follow this link right back to my marketing site if I have permission in the marketing site to do so. So this is great because I can have permissions on separate permissions for separate documents in different sites, but they're linked together. And now you may be asking, what happens if this document needs to change? Well, it turns out that Bausch & Lomb actually did a rebranding recently, and they've changed their logo. So here I am in the marketing site, and I need to upload a new version of this document, and new logo for 2010. I'll upload the file. And this is the new Bausch & Lomb logo. If I scroll down, you'll see, though, that the document has been versioned, but if I were to follow the link back to my employee site, we did not update the document in the employee site. And we do that on purpose because we want the collaborators in the marketing site to be able to update the document, route it around for approval, revise it multiple times, and then finally when the document is ready to be refreshed over in the published site, if I go back to it, you'll see that there's this little button called refresh, and I can press this button, and now I get a message that says my document was refreshed in the employee site. I can follow that link again, and you'll see that the document, the new logo, is now out on the employee side. If I scroll down, you'll see there's that we versioned, so the old logo is still available to be downloaded because it once was published. So the marketing site is so the other benefit of this is not just keeping the security of these logos tied down, but it's also helpful for the search results. If I were to search in the employee site for a logo, I'll do that search really quick, you'll see I get back 28 results, very consumable. It's a bunch of these client logos and some presentations that must contain the word logo somehow. But if I do that same search across all sites, I get back well over 100 documents. There's duplicates, there's other documents. If I scroll down, you'll see there's spreadsheets and other things. It's kind of a mess, but these documents are more relevant to the people in those other sites, in the marketing site or project site or wherever it may be. So by publishing the file to the employee site, we really make it easier for that file to be consumed. The final thing I want to do is talk a little bit about our client sites. Our client sites are just like these team sites for marketing, except we want them to be more consistent so that as a delivery team member moves from one site to the next, that team member knows what to expect, knows where information is going to be stored. The way we achieve that is by adding new feature into Share for templated sites. So if I go in to create a site, and let's say that I pretend I've just been hired by a company called Redfish, and so I'm going to create a client site for them, Redfish, and you'll see this pick list. We have added a couple of different kinds of sites here. In addition to the default collaboration site that ships out of the box with Share, we've invented a client site and a marketing project site. Marketing sites are for like webinars and other events that are all sort of similar. So I'll select client site, and I'll click OK. And we get a brand new site. You can see up here at the top it says Redfish. And this site is structured based off a template. So if I pop into the document library here, you'll see that we have a standard folder structure that's been preceded with the standard folder structure we use in our methodology. So this makes it consistent. People know how to file their documents correctly. And as I move from site to site to site, I have the same information in the same place. And this not only folders, but you can have document templates and wiki pages and dashlets and all sorts of things that make a site a unique site. So the templating feature we've added really helps keep this consistency. So the last thing I want to demo for you is how we use Share to manage these documents day to day. So it can be a little bit tedious using the web interface to check documents in and check them out. So one thing that we like to do is just use the operating system to access the documents. So here what I've done is I've exposed Alfresco Share to my Macintosh Finder, which those of you who are not Mac users, this is just like Windows Explorer, but for the Mac. And I've got a little shortcut here that lists all the sites exposed like a file system. And that new site I just created, Redfish, is added to this list, and I can double-click it. I can go into the document library, and I see that same folder structure that I saw in the web interface. But now I can drag and drop documents in. I can just double-click them to edit. It's so much easier when we're dealing with the document-centric part of your day-to-day work. So what we find at Bluefish is that when people are looking for information, they tend to go to Share and search or browse. But when they are working on a project, they tend to spend most of their time just using Share like a file system. And this is super seamless. Like, let me go into to a different site, go into that marketing site, and just show you how cool this is. If I go into the document library and I go into those client logos, I can pop over to the cover flow view in Macintosh, and I can page through these just like they were on my local hard drive, and they're all coming out of Alfresco. So it's super easy to use. It's seamless. We love it. Okay, that's all I wanted to demonstrate. And so let me move on and kind of summarize where we're at, what we've done, and what's on the roadmap. So we customized Share in 3 ways to sort of achieve this vision of using a network of sites. We added that link picker in the wiki that lets us find documents and link to them very easily. We created the publish capability so you can publish documents to other sites. And we created the site template capability so that we can have consistency across all of our client sites. In the future, we're adding the ability to tag sites with metadata so that it's easier to find a site. When you want to join a site, you could just filter on all the documents that are client document, all the projects, all the sites that are client sites or all the sites that are marketing sites, things like that. And we also want to add a better announcement feed dashlet for the user dashboard so that kind of rolls up all the announcements from all of the sites that you are a member of. Right now we can have a dashlet that shows the announcements from one site, and you can have multiple dashlets, but we don't roll up all of the announcements into one. So with that, I've sort of gotten to the end of what I wanted to talk about. It's question and answer time. While people are typing in their questions, I'd like to ask you one last poll question, which is, what do you think about this presentation? Would you recommend it to a colleague or a friend? This just helps us figure out, did we do a good job? Should we do this kind of thing again? And while you're answering that question, I will take a moment to give you the warning about this little, I want to tell you a little bit or ask you whether or not Bluefish might be a fit for your needs. In particular, I want to talk about an offering we have at Bluefish we call our Small Bites menu. And Small Bites are designed to help companies that are just doing a sort of straightforward Alfresco implementation, and they want to take the fastest path possible. And so what we've done is we've broken up an Alfresco project into these little bite-sized chunks. Each of these small bites can be purchased individually, or they can be strung together into a quick start package or another kind of package. And they're very affordable. The most expensive one is $20,000. In a typical content management project, you would probably spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. So what we find is that our clients who just want a little bit of help on one part of the project, maybe just designing it, but they want to implement it themselves, or maybe they need help planning, but they're going to do all the development work, then they can just hire us to engage with a workshop or one of these small bites. So that's the end of the sales pitch. And let me get back to the questions. If you type your questions into the chat window, and I'll feel free to answer them. And then I'll sort of answer them kind of in the order I receive them a little bit. So the first question that I have is, Andrew asks, can you set up any kind of template and share that lets teams create new project sites whenever they want? Yes, and that was that last little piece that I was sort of showing you, the site template capability. I didn't show you how to create a template, but there's another part of the repository which has a standard set of folder structures and things, and you can create new folders in the template site. You can load it up with documents, and then that template site will just show up in that pick list when you go to create a site, and then anybody can create a site of that type. Another question is a clarification. This publishing is not part of out-of-the-box Alfresco, but a customization that Bluefish created. Is that correct? And the answer is yes. The publishing functionality is a customization that we created. One of the things that you get if you were to ask Bluefish to help you with a project is we have a reusable code library that we bring to bear on our projects. So if you wanted any of the customizations you saw here today, there's a good chance we'll be able to reuse the customization on your project if your requirements were similar to the ones we had here internally. Another question here is, have you released any of your features or customizations into the community? So we've released a few defect fixes and bug resolutions into the community, but we haven't released any of these features into the community yet. We're trying to figure out the best way to do that with a support model. Maybe there's a community version of the customization, and along with a supported version. We just haven't gotten there yet, but that's a good suggestion. What language are your customizations written in, and why? So our customizations were mostly developed using web scripts that were written in JavaScript. And there's occasionally when, I can't speak for these three customizations exactly, but occasionally we'll find that for performance reasons or for some nuance of the vagaries of customizing Alfresco, that it makes more sense to write the web script in Java. But in this case, I think most of these web scripts were written in JavaScript. And that's just because it's a lot easier to develop. You don't have to bounce the server with, the scripting languages are faster to code in. So that's why we do it in JavaScript. Somebody asks, is well, let me find this. It scrolled off my list. Hold on just a sec. So somebody's asking, besides the recommendation that management should think advertising, does Bluefish have some best practices for designing effective dashboards or home pages? That's a great question. I do have a recommendation, and this doesn't go over with all of our clients, but my recommendation is that the user dashboard should be controlled by the user. Let the user put the dashlets on their user dashboard that they get the value from. But with the site dashboards, control those with the manager of the site. And what I like to do is I like to use that three-column layout that you saw with the most important links surfaced in those dashlets, in that wiki dashlet, on the left column. Some of the feeds in the middle column that are wider, so announcements feeds, recent documents, modified documents, activity feeds, those sorts of things. And then over in the right-hand column, I like to put the management messages, like you saw the core values. That's management telling the employees, I want you to remember our core values. So that's a suggestion, and I'd be happy to talk offline if somebody wants to, whoever asked that question, if you want to send me an email, give me a call. I can give you some more advice on how to create good home pages. Somebody asked, is the WebEx going to be made available for download later this week? It will be made for download. I'm not sure if it will happen this week or early next week, but it will be made available, and I believe you should also get an email with a link to it, so you don't have to keep checking the website. Let me scroll back through the questions. Okay, this is a technical question. I'm afraid I probably won't be able to answer this, but someone's asking, can I write JSR 168 and JSR 286 compliant portlets and put them in Alfresco? Is there anything special I have to do to make this work? No, I believe that you can go the other way. You can take Alfresco dashlets and include them in a portal container, but I don't think you can drop a portlet that has been written for another portal and drop that into Alfresco Share. You probably could customize Alfresco Share with a dashlet that in an iframe. You could probably beat what I call beat it into submission, but I don't think you can just drop it in. Okay, well, I think I answered the questions that I saw. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody's. But if you do have more questions, my email address is here on the screen, my phone number. I'll give a plug for if you're in any of these cities, if you're in Texas or Orlando or St. Louis, Bluefish will be hosting some lunch and learns in July. These lunch and learns are sort of designed to let folks who are want to know more about Alfresco come ask their questions in person. We buy you lunch. We do it at a hotel room, a hotel conference room, and Bluefish will be. In fact, I personally will be at all 5 of these events, presenting on along with Alfresco on some case studies of how other companies have been using Alfresco successfully, and also giving a live demo as well. So I'd love to see you. Come out if you are available. You can go to the Bluefish website, and we have an events page, and you can see the specific locations and the times and the days and a link to register. So bluefishgroup.com, and find under the About section, there's an events page that will tell you all about it. Okay, well, I thank everybody for attending. I know it takes a lot to take an hour out of your day to spend with me, and I do appreciate it. I hope that you found something you could take away from the presentation today. So with that, I'll say goodbye, and hope to see you at our next event.